I have read 73 books this year, so I had to have a little bit of deliberation when it comes to what are my top 10. But I've decided. If you'd like to read any of the 10 best books I read this year, check them out in the description. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, either subscribe to my YouTube channel or my Substack. Now, without further ado, let's get into number 10, because of course I'm gonna make you wait until the end of the video for my number 1 favorite book of the year. Number 10 is Hazelwood's Check and Mate. In this clever and swoon-worthy YA debut from the New York Times best-selling author of The Love Hypothesis, life's moving pieces bring viral chess players together in a match for the heart. One of the reasons why this romance, of all the romances I read this year, stuck out to me is the main male character felt like it had a lot more depth than the regular male main character in a romance, which is not normally something I say about Hazelwood's books. I mean, I normally do enjoy her books, but it just feels like there's so much complexity she puts into female characters, and it just seems like she gets a tad bit lazy when it comes to the characterization of the men. They're kind of all the same, but I really enjoyed the character of Nolan. I liked this couple a lot. They were such a cute, sweet couple. I really enjoyed Hazelwood's take on a young adult novel, so I think she should try her hand at YA novels again. The 9th book is called The Love Haters. That was, for me, the romance of the summer. It's a thin line between love and love hating in the newest laugh out loud, all the feels rom-com by New York Times bestselling author Katherine. She goes to make a sort of short little documentary because she's a videographer on this Coast Guard, and she can't swim. That reminded me of another reason why I loved this book so much. I mean, I loved the characters. It had a lot of depth outside of just the romance. She struggles with body image a lot, and that's why it's so difficult for her to get swimming lessons, because she doesn't want to be seen in a bathing suit. I also really loved Aunt Rue and the Rescue Great Dane. Incredible side characters. Other than Cole. He sucked. So we started with 2 strong romances. Now we're going to have a thriller. I read The Trouble with Drowning on my Kindle. I got it as a Goodreads giveaway. I also read The Love Haters on my Kindle, but I don't own that one. That one I got from the library. This one is a book that I consider to be underrated. So I'm guessing you haven't heard of it, and I think you should give it a shot because it was wild, and I think it deserves more hype. Corrosive Comparisons and Beautiful Lies. When author Eden Hart floats into Tuckson's Antigone books in all her dazzling perfection to give a reading, Kat, a struggling writer, can't help but compare herself. Professionally, physically, socially, Eden is Kat's aspiration. Thankfully, Kat's life starts to take on its own Eden-like glow when her literary future takes shape and she falls madly in love with Jacob, the effortlessly charismatic son of her literary hero. Kat's life is finally her fantasy realized, but how long can she keep this up? She seemed like a little off at the beginning. You like her at the beginning because you relate to her and you want her to be happy, and then she just ever so slowly becomes more and more concerning. Like, what are you doing? This book was wild. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, she makes a lot of choices that are interesting. This one is number 7. Carrie Soto is back by my favorite author ever, Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book I've been meaning to read for forever, so I finally just got it as an audiobook from my library and got to listen to it. An epic adventure about a female athlete, perhaps past her prime, brought back to the tennis court for one last Grand Slam. From the author of Malibu Rising, Daisy Jones and the Six, and The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. one of my favorite books ever. Ugh, this book. As much as Carrie Soto was like she was just not nice, but you just love her so much anyway. Just as always, in this book, the characterization and the character depth, character development throughout how they changed throughout their lives was so emotionally charged, and you have to love the characters no matter how flawed they are. Also, the romance was just peak. Another thing was, I think I read Check and Mate right before I read Carrie Soto is Back, and even though those books are completely different, one's romance and one's more literary fiction, one's YA and one's adult. They're completely different genres and audiences, but they were very similar in that they both had an aspect that always kept me on the edge of my seat. Like, I loved the characters because they were so in depth. So it was character driven, but it was also very much plot driven at the same time, which is what makes an incredible novel. Because, I mean, both of them had world champion tournaments just in different fields, you know. Carrie Soto is Back is about tennis, and Check and Mate is about chess, of course. But in both of those novels, they wrote this intense match. When they're in the game, it's just such high tension, and you cannot stop listening or reading, because I physically read Check and Mate and I listened to Carrie Soto is Back. I remember I would be going for a walk while listening to Carrie Soto is Back. There would be a car go past and I'll be like, no, I need to go back because I need to lock in. Carrie Soto is about to go against Nikki Chan and I need to pay attention really closely. So yeah, I was at the edge of my seat for a lot of that, but also then I was emotionally attached and to the other parts. It was just a lot of emotions, and Taylor Jenkins Reid is an incredible author. That's all I gotta say. This one is the sixth one, The Scammer. Honestly, the reasons why thrillers make it to my top 10 is just because they are unspeakably wild. Like, I can't even explain how wild they are. You just gotta read it. So yeah, similar to The Trouble with Drowning, it was wild, but it's further up on the list. It's number 6. So I will say it was more wild. That, and I could not stop reading. Like, I got caught it up into it, and I would have time sensitive things that I would need to go do, and then I would just forget because I'm reading this book and I needed to keep reading. This is another book I read on my Kindle. I actually got it from NetGalley, so thank you, NetGalley and publishers, which is Quiltree Books, and Tiffany D. Jackson herself, of course. I mean, for both, letting me read it before it was published, but also for writing it because it was so good. Also, based on a true story. The Scammer is like a car crash that you can't look away from. Anyway, I will stop yapping and I will read the blurb. A New York Times bestseller. Ooh, good job. It deserves it. New York Times best-selling author Tiffany D. Jackson delivers another stunning, ripped from the headlines thriller, following a freshman girl whose college life is turned upside down when her roommate's ex-convict brother moves into their dorm and starts controlling their every move. One, not only was it on here because of how wild it was, but it was also on there because of, as I said, I could not stop reading it. I couldn't put it down. And 3, it was on here because of how good the romance was. I love the romance so much. It's not a romance novel. Why did I love the romance so much? Why was the romance better written than so many romance novels? Now, I'm not hating on romance novels. I love romance. But some of them are just stale. And this one was not. It was so good. Anyway, we're halfway through. At number 5, I have another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. And this is actually why I read Carrie Soto is Back finally, because I wanted to completely catch up on Taylor Jenkins Reid books. And so I got Atmosphere from my library as well as an audiobook, which I recommend because the audiobooks are done incredibly well. From the author of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six, comes an epic new novel set against the backdrop of the 1980s Space Shuttle program about the extraordinary lengths we go to live and love beyond our limits. One thing to know about Taylor Jenkins Reid, if you haven't read it before, is when you read one of her books, you get immersed into this world that normally you would look on from the outside, such as the world of celebrity actress with The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, or a rock star with Daisy Jones and the Six, or competitive athletes like Malibu Rising with surfing and Carrie Soto with tennis. And then there's atmosphere where they're literal astronauts. And with all of these, she does such a good job of immersing you in the world because she does so much research. It's very evident in her writing. And not only that, but just the way she writes, she could make anything interesting, which makes it so much better when what she's writing about is already so interesting. It's just something on a whole new level. As I said before with Carrie Soto, all of the characters are flawed, but they are so lovable. Even the side characters, you have to love them. And that's why this book becomes so emotionally charged, because you spend time with these people and get closer to them. And so when something happens, it's just so heartbreaking. The fourth book was actually a reread, and it was Frankenstein, which I read for one of my English classes during my last semester of college. I had actually originally listened to the audiobook of Frankenstein, so I was really glad that I had to get a physical copy, and I was able to slow down a lot and read the lines very carefully. I had enjoyed it the first time, but I didn't feel like I retained as much as I could have. And now I feel like I understand the story so much deeper now, especially since I was able to have conversations with my class, and that was a lot of fun. Honestly, I recommend, if you want to just grab some of your friends who also like reading, get a classic book and read it in a book club and discuss it. It's a lot of fun because there's a lot of hidden under the surface meaning to classic books. Because they're classic for a novel, they're impactful. And of course, Frankenstein was impactful because it was debatably the first sci-fi book and the first horror book. If not, then it was at least a very distinctive book in the creation of those two genres. The world's most famous work of horror fiction, a devastating exploration of the limits of human creativity. Mary Shelley's timeless Gothic novel presents the epic battle between man and monster at its greatest literary pitch. Here is the copy I had, one of the Dover thrift editions. There are some really pretty covers, but at the same time, it's a classic, so you can buy it for pretty cheap if you don't really care too much about how the cover looks. Lots of annotating. I just really loved the discussions I was able to have. There is a lot of parallels between the monster or the creature, whatever you would call the creation of Frankenstein. He is similar to AI in the question of just because you can make something, should you? It's similar also, I'm realizing just now, in the fact that with AI, it grabs all these random pieces from different works and then smushes it together and creates this something, this thing that could destroy the world. He did rob graves to make the creature. So, very similar to AI in a lot of ways. But also, it's the question of what responsibility do you have to your creations? And also, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I believe Frankenstein made the creature, and therefore Frankenstein is his father, and he should have fathered him, or at least cared about him at all. He abandoned him, and I felt so bad. He just wanted some love, and he just like screamed and ran away and broke his heart. Anyway, but tell me what you think. Ooh, we're getting to the top 3. It's so exciting. Okay, this one is actually one I just finished. This one's by Katherine and it's Things You Save in a Fire. I did have to knock one off the list. Actually, speaking of Frankenstein, it was Cleopatra and Frankenstein that I kicked off the top 10 because I had to add this one. I stayed up until 3 a.m. reading it. I could not stop. I had to read it, but also I had to slow down. Like, I'm a slow reader in general, but when a book is just really good, so much is happening and it's so emotional and there's just so many good lines. I just have to stop and reread lines to make sure I'm just taking in the greatness of the writing. But also, I need to go and annotate it, of course. If a line hits different, you gotta underline it. And not only underline it, you gotta star it because I underline a lot of things. Like if it's something important plot wise or anything that I want to come back to, I usually underline it. If it's too much of a section, I bracket it. Other than that, I don't really have that much variation. So if it's a really, really good line that I want to easily come back to, I will also star it. And there was a lot of that at the end of this book. So I actually went through the last like 50 pages super slowly because of how much I was loving this book. And I was loving it from the very beginning. The romance is next level on this one. It's also another one of the romances that is not at all cookie cutter. It is a beautiful, delicious blob of cookie, and I loved it so much. I think I want to read more of Katherine Center's older books because while I absolutely loved the book Haters, which is one of her newer books, this one just hit different. Like her newer books are more rom-com-y. Not that this wasn't funny, this was super funny. But this just felt deeper and more like more was put into it, more thought was put into it. But like I said, I do love her newer books as well, but I need to read more of her older books because this just hit different. Oh my word. I recommend it so much. Please, 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 please pick this up. From New York Times best-selling author of How to Walk Away comes a stunning new novel about courage, hope, and learning to love against all odds. Cassie Hanwell was born for emergencies. Oh, sorry. I need to interrupt already. Cassie, I love this character. So much depth. And also the rookie. That's all I gotta say. Cassie Hanwell was born for emergencies. As one of the only female firefighters in her Texas firehouse, she's seen her fair share of them. And she's a total pro at other people's tragedies. But when her estranged and ailing mother asks her to give up her whole life and move to Boston, Cassie suddenly has an emergency of her own. One aspect of this book that I also really loved that I think I have to touch on is while this was written before the whole not like other girls thing came along, you could maybe say Cassie is a not like other girls girl. Not that she dislikes girls like that, but just that she acts more tough and quote unquote manly because she wants to be respected in her field. It does very much throughout the novel get at the fact that that's not okay. You know, she can be this complex woman who is both tough and an incredible firefighter, and at the same time she can be emotional and, you know, be in tune with herself and want to be loved. This book really shows that people are complex and the toughest people can also be the most vulnerable. It was a beautiful book. You know what? I should probably try to find one of the lines that I loved so much. This is the test to see if I'm good at annotating. This one starred, I knew too much about life to pretend that it wasn't half tragedy. We lose the people we love. We disappoint each other. We misunderstand. We get lost and lonely and angry. But right now, in this moment, we are okay. Better than okay. Oh, there's another one. Oh, I just realized that was the last lines of the book, which is probably not something I should have read aloud. Let's find a different quote, shall we? That's every comic book villain ever. They suffer, and then they inflict suffering on others. Good guys do the opposite. Good guys suffer too, but they respond by helping. Or to number 2, which this one, every single time I look at the cover makes me so giddy just because I don't remember a crazy ton about any of the books I read, but I do remember the vibes, how they made me feel. And this book made me feel all the giddy feelings. I loved it so much. And also, the cover is so absolutely stunning. I think the biggest thing I really, really loved about this book was its message on life, because the main character, she doesn't have her ish together. She doesn't have anything together. If I remember correctly, she's very socially anxious and isolated, and that's relatable. She's flawed, like struggling to get by, struggling with, mental illness and all these things that a lot of regular people struggle with. If your 20s are supposed to be the best years of your life, Bennett Taylor is failing miserably, with a big emphasis on the miserable. Where's that zest she keeps hearing about? She's a temp worker in New York City with no direction, no future, and no social life. When Bennett runs into Henry Adams just hours after standing him up for a first date, she makes an alcohol-fueled confession. She's not ready to date. In fact, it's been years since she felt passion for something. Not even pottery or organized sports. Not anything. Rather than leaving her to ruminate, Henry jumps at the opportunity for adventure. Bennett needs to find a passion for life, and Henry will help her find it. Every Saturday, they'll try something new in New York City, as friends, of course. It's very much a friends to lovers book, which I love, friends to lovers. As their passion project continues, the pair tackle everything from carpentry to tattooing to rappelling off skyscrapers, and Bennett feels her guarded exterior ebbing away. But as secrets surface, Bennett has to decide what she wants. With emotional resonance and sparkling banter, Passion Project is a fun, flirty, thoughtful story of finding a spark and igniting happiness. That's such a good description of this book. I love that last line. I guess I didn't say anything about the guy, but the guy is great in this romance as well. This one rivals the other two I was talking about in The Scammer and Things You Save in a Fire. Those three are just very close in the best three couples. So I guess there were some pretty amazing romance plots that I read this year. I read a lot of romance though, so there were a lot of mid-romance plots. So if you want to read good romance, I've given you some recs here, so you know what to go pick up. This last one, my number one favorite book of this year was The Bright Years. It's literary fiction, which is my favorite genre. This book is one of those books that is just, it's expansive. It covers the whole life of this person and then the life of their child even, it's like passing off the baton to their child, and you get to see such expansive view of these people's lives, and you really get connected with them because it feels like you grew up with them. You knew them since they were born, because you did. You read the page they were born. One family, 4 generations, a secret son, a devastating addiction. A Texas family is met with losses and surprises of inheritance, but they're unable to shake the pull back toward each other in this family saga. My phone died, so I went to charge it, refilmed the ending, realized I didn't turn my mic on. So now this is going to be the 3rd time I filmed this ending. It's fine. We're all good. I had just said that I didn't want to say too much about The Bright Years because honestly I thought the blurb had said too much, which is kind of perfect that it died, and I think that's a sign. So I say I'm just not going to read the blurb for you guys because I think this is a book you need to go into blind. It's one of those books you need to let take you along for the journey. Trust the author. She's got a wild ride for you. A sad one, a heartbreaking one, a heartwarming one as well, but it's a wild ride. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. As I said before, the links to all of the best books I read this year will be in the description. Links to where else you can find me on the internet will be in the description as well. If you liked the video, like the video, and if you want to see more, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week in another video. But until then, have a good day and goodbye.